right, got another guest caster in. We're bringing in Niru. Just say your name, dude. Just say how it's meant to be pronounced. Set the
It's
record
meant
straight.
to be pronounced Ni-ri-u,
Niryu.
but you can say, yeah,
Niryu is on the
anything
mic
is
with me.
fine. Really.
No, we'll stick with it. We're going to do honor to him. We're going to do him right. He's hopped on for the cast. He does a bunch of casting for the smaller tournaments. I believe he do some for, is it Forgotten Empires? No, wait. That's
Uh,
Studio. What am I getting
Rising
mixed up?
Empires, yes. I do
Yes.
admin work and casting for Rising Empires.
Rising Empires.
Pretty fun.
Got you mixed up with the dev there. I'm a genius. So, Rising Empires caster in. Let's see what he's got for us. Oh, look at that. Well, he's definitely brought it to us. I didn't find it. He found it. It's Leenock versus Kazva. What the bloody... What? All right.
What?
Did you see that on the minimap? Leenock's
It's,
scout zoomed across the map.
All
right.
Okay. Probably. Look, we don't question how the replacing system works. We just accept it works.
Yeah. Well, clearly, I mean, we're in the Dark Age here, and we have a cameraman, so we already knew that Relic was full of witchcraft. So we'll just pile it down to that. That's fine. But it looks like we have actually got a Chinese Abbasid matchup. These guys have been just scrimming up against each other. I don't know if this was on the ladder. I didn't check if it was custom games. I wonder if they're practicing the off-meta combat for round 3, because I think the banned civs were meant to be released today.
I'm not sure. I know the pro players have their own internal ban list, and they've been practicing based off that. But I really doubt that China is not banned on this map, or at all on any map, to be completely honest.
Really? Like, so think about it, because Dry Arabia, like, you know, I think Delhi has to be banned there, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Delhi in English probably are
Malians?
insta bans. Malians, people have been struggling recently with Malians, but I don't think they're quite at the ban level yet. It could be. Maybe it is actually the round 3 for Golden League 2 rule set, in which they just banned the 4 top saves according to pro players.
Because I think it's like it kind of makes sense from like the Malian perspective. Like it's annoying to deal with at the moment. Like I don't think it's fully been solved and it's on the rise. So I could kind of see a world in which people value that hard than the Chinese, where Chinese can be annoying. We've seen the Chicken New type strat that's emerging, but it does feel like a civ that you can contain, right? And if you contain them, they run out of resources quite fast.
That is true. China is one of those civilizations that if you just let them grow, they're unstoppable. But if you keep them in check, they're quite easy to deal with. Still, the Barbican, such a defensive, powerful tool.
Yeah, but typically you don't see that first, right? Most players will do this, exactly. Imperial Academy to open up with, and it is going to be that standard opening where you just have one villager build it up. And this means that by the time it completes, he should have more or less what he needs to build the Barbican as well.
Yeah, if someone is very tight with their build, they will have Imperial Academy and Barbican finishing almost at the same time. It's pretty impressive. I can't do it myself. I don't play China.
It's fine.
That's why I don't play China.
Some of us have a soul. It's very potent civ. I think like it's probably one of the most polarizing civs when you're starting to play the game. But like once you kind of get the basics down, optimize the way you use an IO, it feels like almost free elo at that stage.
Oh yeah, Imperial Official. It's probably one of the strongest units in the game. If you think about it, that guy, just one supply increases your income by 20% and can increase your production speed. It's just an insane unit.
It's the level of flexibility this civ gets is kind of feels unrivaled, right? Especially when you now consider units like Chicken New, which are coming in and dominating even in early phases like Feudal. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Abbasids, in a lot of ways, kind of seen as the more simple civ in some people's minds when the game first came out, right? Once you figured out you just have to build 1 million TCs, and we might see, maybe not 1 million, but multi-TCs coming out from Leenock, as he did go up with the Eco Wing.
I love this new Fertile Crescent. I don't know. People have told me it's pronounced both ways. I love this technology. I think it's really good. I'm still quite sad that Fresh Food Soft went to the town center and nerfed, but this new technology is amazing. It reduces the cost of all economic buildings and houses, by 25%. So all your drop-off points, your houses, your farms get reduced in cost. And that, over the course of the game, is an insane amount of extra wood that you get.
Yeah, I think the key thing is, like you mentioned, housing, right? Like the housing situation matters a lot, right? Because very early on, you're going to have saved basically 100 wood. It starts to add up quickly. At that stage, even if you just built 4 extra houses and that was all you used it for, didn't build an extra TC, you've paid for the research. That's the cool thing about it. It scales really well. I think there are some kind of decent competitors. I still am a really big fan of the opportunity that Trade Wing gives you on certain maps. Culture Wing, I think, kind of baited people at first. A lot of people kind of seem to maybe stepping back and looking at more for later timing like Castle Age, whereas when the patch first dropped, it felt like everyone saw that as the king of fast castle builds.
Oh yeah, some people really tried in the fast castle build with Culture Wing, but it doesn't quite work. What I've seen though is it's really good against fast castle safes like HRE. Then you want to go Culture Wing first, because then you have enough time to get a fast castle yourself and contest the HRE relics, or have crossbows out for their inevitable knight or men-at-arm push.
I feel like with most matchups at the moment, it just feels better for the Ambassadors to be going multi-TC after they reach Castle Age, as opposed to before. And if you are going to go for an early TC, stop at 1 extra. I feel like we see so many situations where someone goes 3 or 4, and it always gets punished.
Speaking of multiple TC, look at this TC for Lino. Like, this is a fat TC. Double deer pack, a berry, 2 stone, and a wood line. 2 wood lines, really. And a berry, another berry. It's just an insane position. This is as best as you can wish for a new TC.
Yeah, and Casva has an interesting position as well. This Barbican drop, he secured the back deer. So if he wants to go for like a 1 TC fast castle type Chinese opening, that's also an option. But you can see he's already rushing on the stone, so we are going to get that multi-TC approach. Doesn't really have the same level of wow to where his town center can be placed, right? Unless he wants to come far out on this left flank.
Yeah, I wonder where he's going to place his second TC. His second TC. I assume it.
TC? Like, it's Chinese, right?
Oh no. Where is he going? He's not next to his TC.
So he's going for the so he's going between the Barbican and the TC.
Okay, interesting placement. I like it.
I think it sets up for the farms later, right? Because you can just build the farms, the granary behind this. There should just about be enough. Oh, actually, no. Is he maybe 1 tile short of enough room?
Maybe. I wish I could see the building grid. I think he's 1 tile short. You're right. But he has a lot of space, like near the trade post. Like, that's a lot of free real estate just to build farms.
That's true. But it just keeps that kind of condensed nature, right? Like, you built the Barbican as extension, which I think, you know, some civs you kind of think this is a bit dicey to open up with. Like, we've seen, usually when you're up against a more aggressive civ, most players will opt to get, like, the second TC and then drop the Barbican further forward. But he opted Barbican first, which is why you get what looks maybe kind of like a more odd formation, I'd say, for the Chinese. Because usually you'll either see the TC out on greedy resources fully, or you'll see it right next to the primary.
Yeah, it's a very interesting placement for the second TC for sure. Now, Linok, on the other hand, he's slowly starting to ramp on production. He's starting to add an archery range. He already has a horseman and a scout just lurking around, see what they can do. But it seems like Linok is looking to put on some pressure in the near future.
Yeah, Horseman just makes a lot of sense. We see that frequently. The Spearmen are great for defending. Like, Kazza kind of revealed part of his hand already with the stables. Is now following up the racks in full total mode. It's kind of interesting the way this is playing out, because Linok is managing to be the aggressor while also being a bit of a TC boomer himself.
Yep, and he managed to catch the villager building the wall, so he knows Casva is just going to try to stay back and boom. So what is going to be his response? Just massing units for in the meantime.
He has a very fast go time, right? When you're playing as the Abbasids, you don't have to reset siege engineering. You already have access to rams. So if he just closes on this quick enough, especially with the fact he's already got archers, you know, Casva could be in a bit of trouble.
Yep, he also got +1 armor, which is great against Chinese because you get news, although Casva doesn't have an archery range yet. Which is interesting because usually that's the first thing Chinese do whenever they get some. They drop an archery range because chicken are so good.
The problem is you went stables first, right? And if you go stables first and then you see this horseman reaction, you have to go spearman. So it's just the flow of things. I think his logic is that I think Casva wanted to be the aggressor in this matchup in a kind of feigned aggression, right? Where he builds like 2 or 3 horsemen max and Leenock just turtles with spears and he gets to be greedy on the other side.
Yeah, but Leenock is not the type of player to turtle. He really likes to be on top of his enemies.
Yeah,
And here he comes. He has a big army right now.
that's true. It is going to be slow on the move out, right? He's splitting them up with the horsemen going on the flank, and that flank is now being covered. You see Casva's looking to wall it up. It's going to be tight on the timing as well, but I think he would be able to get this up before the horsemen can arrive, so good thing that Leenock is choosing to just divert attention towards the center.
Look at that wall. Casva is just, nope, I don't
This
want
is,
you anywhere near me.
He's going to lose the spearman on their 3. The problem here as well is, like, you may not want him in your base, but that ram I talked about him being able to build, we have to remember that you do get bonus damage against walls, so these palisades will not last long.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Palisades, since they got nerfed again, they're not a couple of rams just absolutely destroy palisade walls. I think they get 2 shot, maybe 3? 3 shot.
It should be, so you do 300 damage every 5 seconds. So it'll be 4. Wait, actually just over 4.
Yeah, 4. Or 3
Actually,
with a
no,
couple
sorry,
of
you're right,
torches.
you're right. Sorry, it's 200 plus 200, so it's, yeah, so it's 4 shots.
Yeah, still 4 shots, but a couple of torches, and it's just 3. And Leenock is forcing Caspa's hand right now.
So
Just
damage.
forcing the spears out and then just poking them with the archers. A really good play by Leenock, but Caspa managed to get Castle.
He did, and look at the amount of gold he gathered. He intentionally rushed that gold vein like he was in the middle of the American colonies being founded, right? He just wanted to get across as quickly as possible. Blacksmiths also prepped double racks into the Palace Guard. It's problematic now because Leenock, he didn't bring any camel archers. And even though these Palace Guard have slightly less armor than men at arms, still enough armor that it feels like you're doing no damage here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they only have 3 base armor. Yeah, only 3. And archers do at this point 6 with their +1. So it still takes quite a while to kill a Palace Guard with archers.
Yeah, especially
But
when
he
you
does
consider-
have a big army.
Exactly, especially when you consider there's a 155 health unit. So got a turtle for a while. Plenty of garrison points. Going to have to be used here. Rams moving in. Brace the spears to keep the horsemen back for the time being. Palace Guard is trying to make their way in, but the body blocks are good from Leenock. Focus fire comes in from the Rams onto the town center, which will force the repairs. Those villagers are unguarded. These Palace Guard are not going to keep the army at bay.
Yeah, Leenock is doing a very, very good job. He's just going for maximum damage. He knows his push is not going to accomplish much, so he's just going to try to get as many villagers as he can, force as much idle as he can, and behind that, he's slowly building up for castle himself.
Yeah, he
Very
has
nice fight.
got a lot of wood on his hands, though. That it just isn't being used. Maybe a little bit distracted by this fight. You know, we've seen this in the past, right? Like, Leenock is the type of player that does tend to tunnel vision on the micro side of things. So can occasionally find himself kind of rushing up a resource after the fact.
Still, 3 rams that Caspa has to deal with. It's more than enough time for Leenock to get castle, and there he is, going up with the culture wing. Pretty good. And yeah, he did a lot of damage. He took down the TC, killed a bunch of villagers. Not that many, 6, but still a lot. And forced Caspa to stay into his base again, when he really wants to be putting pressure right now on his timing window, where he is castle and Leenock is not.
Yeah, it's a value proposition thing as well, right? Like, you forced the walls to be built up, you still got through. 750 resources on that TC, that's the cost of 3 rams. Then the racks on top as a bonus. Did throw away the army, but as a result, kept Kaz's army small. And when we look at that eco count, you mentioned he got a few kills there. The gap between them is only 4. And now, well, with that eco wing, you think about the fact long-term food, right? There's going to have to be a transition. That transition is already underway because of all that wood we talked about Leenock having. The fact that it's actually cheaper for him to go into farms compared to Casva.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the power of the economic wing right now. Farms for Leenock are only 56 wood compared to 75 for Caspa, and he still needs to add granaries on top of that. Caspa, not in desperate food situation still, because he still has a deer, a couple of berries around, but he will need to start looking into transitioning into farm pretty soon.
Oof. he rebuilt the TC. So Kazva understands that this is going to take a while to even get anything. He's being double greedy, though. Secondary TC again, and then on top of that, a Monastery. I'm not even sure if he has that much map control to use to get these relics.
No, well, the Palace Guards are going to force Linux to be into his base for a little bit until he can get enough crossbows to defend comfortably. So I think it's fine. It's not ideal, but he should be fine with that Monastery. He should be able to grab 2-3 relics easily. And the 4th and 5th is going to depend on how fast Linux can push out of his base again.
Yeah, my thoughts are the Camel Archers coming, right? You see the count escalating quite quickly, and Camel Archers will be able to just flood the midfield. So definitely a timer placed on Kazva here. And a timer in multiple ways. Like you mentioned, you've got those food sources other than farms, but we can see the deer, like there's not that much left of them here, right? He left 181 carcasses on one side, and he's got 2 deer here that look like they're reproducing, but that's not how Age of Empires 4 works.
That's pretty funny.
You've even got the buck at the back, you know?
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, after that, he's just going to be on berries, and he will need to look into farm transition, while Linux is already ahead of him in that regard. And he still has sheep. He still has a lot of sheep under TC. Holy. Linux doing pretty good on this game.
That's because he flooded all of his food requirements onto that secondary TC, right? So it's just been sitting there the whole time. Beneficial for him. And the cool thing about having all that food is the amount of Camel Archers he's able to afford. Camel Archers that will make quick work of these Lancers.
He needs to upgrade them though. They're still feudal. But yeah, they still do quite quick work of the Lancers. They do 13 damage. That's a lot.
Over half the damage going through. Only 5 is being negated. So definitely a stinger. And looks like he has started to scout out the relics being collected. So as anticipated, before the third can even be grabbed, Kazva is now being blocked.
Yeah, it's going one Lancer trying to find some kind of damage. I think he's just going to guard the relic, which is a good heads up play. Although Linux doesn't look like he's worried too much about relics, just his first Imam being produced.
But on a delay, he can easily kind of soak these up, right? And you can see Kazva, like he's not really flooding the field with Lancers. He's going for a slower comp, relying on Siege and relying on Chugenu.
Yeah, the thing is, Kazba is almost out of food. He needs to shift his entire economy onto wood to be able to start producing granaries and farms. And this is going to slow him down quite significantly.
And he hasn't necessarily been optimal with the finite food he's had, right? Like, I'm checking out this deer stack, and IO never came out here, right? So he hasn't been getting that extra 20%, which has just accelerated the requirement to go into these farms.
Oh, yeah. Where are his officials? One is idle, completely idle, next to the berries. Another one is supervising the berries. Where are the others? Gold and wood. So yeah, not too on top of his IOs, especially that idle one. He really needs to put that one to work.
He's been vibing there for a while.
Yep, he's just chilling. It's like, this other guy's doing the work.
Would he have been in auto tax range on the old TC, maybe? I'm wondering if that's why it's happened like that, because he's got automatic tax collection on. It's just not...
Oh yeah, I think you're right, because he also is carrying 80 gold, so he just can't find anywhere to place it.
Oops. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a big oops.
It means he probably won't ever notice that, so just missing out on a lot of taxation, because that's his only taxer, right? Like, that's the way you usually format your base. Free for resource boosts, and then the other one taxes. A lot of gold being missed out for Kazva, and we can see, by his gold count, he would use that. That's definitely a resource that he needs.
Absolutely. He's only on 80 gold. He has a lot of gold miners because of that too. Like 16 gold miners, that's a lot for China at this point in the game.
And it sucks as well.
Because you're only pushing Palace cards.
Well,
and Chugenu.
Yeah, Chugenu as well, a little bit cost there, the siege. But like the other conundrum part is like, this won't show up as an idler, right? So like in his mind, he's like, oh, I just don't have enough gold. It's one of those type of things that is frustrating when it occurs, because if this happens regularly to you, which hopefully it doesn't, it can kind of screw your muscle memory, your feeling on what you need on a certain resource at a given point in the game.
Absolutely. Well, in the meantime, Linux is building a Ram army, which we saw in that free-for-all how powerful Rams can be.
Yeah, we're not quite at 50 Rams, but four is a start. And, well, it's the start of Kazva's onslaught as well. He moves out aggressively with the keep drop, and will try to yoink away the gold right next to Linux base. But Leenock is
That's a
already
very
harvesting
aggressive.
elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a very aggressive keep. He's looking to secure Linux gold and then fall back to his own goal. That's very, very aggressive. And Linux, I don't think he has any clue about it. No, not at all.
No. And the cool thing is, like, actually, Kazva is reading a critical part of this map. Like, if you check the gold spawns, the big stacks are on this left side. Doesn't mean that Leenock gets the eastern side for free, and he doesn't need to invest in keeps to grab that either.
Oh, now Linux knows for sure what's happening. He saw the walls being destroyed and the Imam just died capturing the secret, so I managed to get a glimpse of that keep. So he knows he's in trouble in that regard.
Needs to make a choice. Do I go in or do I go back? He chooses to go in. Leenock on the move with the Rams, building even more of them. This is just a race between the two players. The problem Kazva has, however, is his comp on the front line can harass Eco, can kill a bunch of people, but it can't kill the player. These Rams could kill Kazva.
Yeah, absolutely. He has a lot of Yugados, which are actually quite decent at killing buildings, but it's not that critical mass that you need because a few armored units and these Yugados are not going to do that well. In the meantime, Kaspa dropping a defensive key, but there are just too many Rams. This keep, there's no way in... Well, it's China. It's going to go up, but it's going to go down really fast.
Yeah, it's going to be like your pogo stick here. Heavy damage coming in. Even if he tries to repair it, it's going to be feeling like it's all for naught. Least exchanges out the Springholds. Push through. Advantage still here with Leenock. Meanwhile, back at home, the raids from the farms are torching down everything. But the Horsemen, they're cleaning up the Chugenu. Kazva's distracted. The Spearmen aren't engaging with this. Army's going to be cleaned up. Keep in his base has already been cleaned as well. Barbican's not going to be far behind it. And you can't help but feel that Kazva is completely disarmed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He didn't pay enough attention to those Shugenu, and the Horsemen just cleaned him up, like you said. And now he's in trouble. He doesn't have any... His army to defend at home is not that big, and it's not good at dealing with the Ram, so his Barbican is going to go down. I assume the clock tower might go down soon after, because as soon as Leenock finishes cleaning up his base, he's probably just going to keep on the pressure.
Another situation where the exchange is good for Leenock. He sacrifices a few villages, he sacrifices several farms, but they're cheaper to rebuild for him. You then have to map out, you know, how many Rams do we have here? We have like 1250 worth. Well, the keep costs 800 stone. Repairing this Barbican ain't going to be cheap either. It just feels like another win for Lee.
Yeah. Since the last patch, players have been so on top of Rams. Like, okay, they didn't really get buffed until Imperial, but it's like, okay, they're now in Siege Workshop, let's just try making more Rams. And they figure out that Rams are actually pretty good units. They only cost one supply, have a ton of health, they deal with buildings really, really effectively. And if they're in with an army, they're quite amazing tanks because they mess up with the AI and the pathing. They're quite good.
It's kind of that body block effect that I've talked about a lot in the past, like Horseman being an X-Factor unit for that. Like, you can kind of do that with Rams as well. It's slower, but you can essentially just trip people over on the flank attack as well. There's so many different kind of flexible things you can do with it. Someone that has been underutilized, I expect that to change for a bit more time, is garrisoning Rams more, right? I still remember Mister's game against, I think it was Recon, where he used the clown car strategy, just keeping a bunch of men-at-arms in the Rams while he dove the base. Just so many things you can do with this unit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Garrison. My favorite thing to garrison inside Rams are Spearmen because usually when people see a Ram, what they do, they send in Horsemen, and then you pop up the Spearmen kill the horses, and you're good to go. I absolutely love garrison thing on Rams. It really is a heavily underutilized strategy.
Raid north side.
Kaspa with a little raid on the north side, idling more farms, but again, Leenock doesn't really care because his farms are so cheap. And he has a lot of farms on the other side of the map that he can just reuse and rebuild.
Does need to rebuild the villages though. He's falling a little bit behind in that regard. Kazva does have a decent amount of his economy idle, but has more economy to flex. And he's flexing across the map, playing both flanks now, with the keep in the east and the keep in the west.
But this is the playstyle that Leenock really thrives on. Like, stuff happening all over the map. He really is good at multitasking and sending a raid here, defending there, a couple of units just being annoying. This is really the type of game that Leenock will turn around really fast. Kaspa with another aggressive creep, like this time on top of the farms.
Chicken being
but he doesn't have
thrown
a...
away though. Like this is a
Yeah.
costly loss. He also did lose the siege to a small horseman raid on the backside. So there's nothing in terms of a second layer behind this to back it up.
Again, this is Linux turf. Like he completely cleaned up the bottom keep. The top keep is about to go down as soon as he finishes up with the army that's remaining there, and he's just trying to keep Casbah APM lock as much as he can. Casbah manages to get Imperial. I'm not quite sure I agree with that because his resources are very, very low.
He already made the granary transition though, so we've got trip granary set up, so food should be fine, but the wood is a limitation for him. It's burning up fast. He's going to be fine to keep distractions in his opponent's base though. Like this double keep drop, we have to remember he'd done it next to the stone outcropping, a fat one at that. So you can afford the loss of these castles long term, knowing that he also took something away from Lenok.
Lenok, in the meantime, just moving his entire army up the middle. He's
We've been here
just
before.
gonna go for Casbah again. It's just... Oh, nest of bees,
Casbah?
maybe?
Oh, he
Casbah.
wasn't
Oh
looking.
no.
That's everything is gone.
Yeah,
Cancel
that's
the
most
Rams.
of his army.
Like, I mean, so Nesta Beast goes down. Several of the Chiganir lost. Like, that was the perfect time to fight as well. You had the extra attack speed. You had the health buffer. But no.
And here comes more Rams by Lenok. This is really Age of Rams now.
I mean, Lenok has been one of the players that's been waiting for this. I know he's the type of player that likes that kind of opportunity to go for early Rams. I've seen it time and time again. But I'd argue Lenok is one of the most impressive Abbasid players at the moment.
Lenok really has a particular place. I don't think anyone plays quite like Lenok right now on the pro scene. His playstyle is just so particular. And I really like it too, because it really showcases how different pro players can be in this game and be so effective.
Playstyle really matters. Give him the same Sith, they'll use it 10 different ways. You really felt that in this game. Casva now on the defensive. Keeps going to be assaulted. Nesta Bees look to get the first strike in, but this is just the first wave. Lenok is staggering his forces to delay. All he wants is that castle gone so he can flood through. Casva, desperate to keep it alive, is going to commit the repair crew. The Rams are still ignored, neglected, unanswered, and more of them are on the way.
Yep, and this is all a throwaway army by Lenok. He's going Imperial behind this. So as he's going to take down this keep, he's going to be Imperial, and he's going to clean up a good chunk of Casbah's army, so he's pretty good, fine with this trade. In the meantime, the north side, the keep got taken out eventually, but Casbah just drops another one right on top of where it was.
Well, he's got enough stone from the area. He's like, I'm going to fold this again, but it doesn't really matter to Lenok. Those farms are still operational on the west side. He's gathering wood in the center. He's getting everything he really needs out of the map.
Yep. Casbah is doing a really good job at spraying out of the map and just trying to not have a condensed economy except for his farms. And so that makes him a little bit raid-proof, considering he's been able to keep Lenok just condensed into his side of the map and throwing all his units into very specific points. But again, this is the type of game that Lenok likes. It's just eventually now he's about to be Imperial, and once his Imperial upgrades kick in, this might shift to his favor really fast.
I mean, the problem I see is, like, he is sacrificing a lot of villagers to get up. You're seeing the difference between them. This Chiganir have just been sitting here the entire time, getting their beaks wet.
Imperial kicks in. Let's see what Lenok does with this. Archers, better. Oh, just some veteran horsemen. He was playing with feudal horsemen all this time. Oh,
Huh. Quite problematic against Chiganir, considering how much damage is going through at that phase. In fact, you can
boot
shred.
camp coming through. Yeah.
I mean, the problem I do see is, like, this is never ending at the moment for Casva. It just feels like he's got enough food to keep this going infinitely. He's breaking in elsewhere as well. The villagers, the new keep drop, and it's enough to convince him it's over. GG's going to get called. Casva's unrelenting aggression will give him the win.
That was pretty impressive. I really thought that Lenok was in a really good spot at that point. I don't think he could have just kept going, but he decided otherwise.
Yeah, I think
Good job
it's-
for Casbah.
like you know what the problem is like Kasva has raided the sides. He's kind of condensed Leenock. Like Leenock doesn't actually have that much in terms of production safe, right? Like he's in that situation that we usually see where a player has to build all of his military buildings at the front of his base, so it's the first thing to go down. Just feels like you're at that stage approaching a slow, stagnant death. But I love the fact that Kasva, he wasn't phased by this ram rush. As soon as he sees the tech up, he understands that he can just dive forward. And Chuga Noob, it's been looking like a pretty balked unit for a while. Add in the Palace Guard at that phase just to chase everything through, and it's a winning combo.
Absolutely. That was very, very well played by Kaspa. All those keeps really ended up paying off. Just to delay Leenock enough for him to capitalize on those small time windows to just grab the resources and get out. So very, very well played by Kaspa. Good job.
Great understanding, like, these Rams players, I like them from Leenock, but you never felt like there was that, coup de grace type player, that one that was going to end the game. So good thing by Kaspa to kind of keep his patience going, just play those flanks, come out ahead. But no, it's an interesting one. Like, people are like sad, like trying to win again. Yeah, I'm sorry, folks, it happens. I think Abbasid's it's a potent Civ, but it's still one that it needs to be fully worked out. It is probably the biggest change Civ of the recent patch.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to still figure out with Abbasid. All the wings got such wild buffs that they're up in the air still.
Yeah, there's so many permutations that still need to be played out. But thank you for joining me on the mic. For anyone who hasn't checked him out, be sure to follow Nero. You don't stream on your own channel, if I'm recalling correctly, but you do cast some of the smaller tournaments, as we said earlier, right?
Yes, I do not stream because currently my potato PC can't stream Age of Empires 4 because it's such a light game. And stream. I can stream other games, but not this.
Okay. Well, they can at least catch you when you are on the...
Yes.
Which
Rising Empires.
Rising Empires, yes.
Rising Empires every Saturday or Sunday. I usually cast Sunday, though.
There you go. Oh, awesome.